happy about it. There wouldn't be a First Amendment without the Second Amendment. Your right to freedom of speech, your freedom of religion, the freedom and liberties that we have in this country are because of the Second Amendment. And never, ever forget that.
She's not going to be the great savior for the Democrats. And they can't skip over the first black woman vice president with the whitest man ever in history, Gavin Newsom.
We the people take this country back.
And if you try to transition a child, you are guilty of child abuse, and every doctor, every nurse, every clinician that is helping that is culpable in that crime.
This thing is so full of pork that even Scrooge and the Grinch are happy about it. There wouldn't be a First Amendment without the Second Amendment. Your right to freedom of speech, your freedom of religion, the freedom and liberties that we have in this country are because of the Second Amendment. And never, ever forget that.
She's not going to be the great savior for the Democrats. And they can't skip over the first black woman vice president with the whitest man ever in history, Gavin Newsom.
It's time that we, the people, take this country back.
And if you try to transition a child, you are guilty of child abuse, and every doctor, every nurse, every clinician that is helping that is culpable in that crime.
This thing is so full of pork that even Scrooge and the Grinch are happy about it. Hey everybody, Congressman Andy Ogles here. This is episode 32. Today we're going to talk about the CR, Ukraine ceasefire, and more woke leftist judges. All right, so the continuing resolution. So I'm not a fan of CRs at all. So we're in this time period called budget reconciliation. So the first phase of that is the House. We sent over our piece of the budget reconciliation to the Senate. They're going to send theirs back. And then, of course, that's where the haggling begins. Now, while we're doing this, we still have to fund the government. And so we just voted on a continuing resolution. Again, I don't like continuing resolutions. Now, what's interesting or different about this one, so even folks like Andy Biggs and Tim Burchett and conservatives like myself supported this continuing resolution because whilst we're in this reconciliation period, we can claw back some of those money. So I'll take Planned Parenthood, for example. We can eliminate their budget. We can claw that money back, right? And so it's important that as we go through this process, that allows the Trump administration to continue to function. We put more money in there for deportations and more money in there for defense. And then look, I'm not a war hawk at all, but there's certain things we have to do when you look at China and its aggression in the Pacific. So there's a lot going on there. So it did pass. So myself and others who normally, again, the House Freedom Caucus, we came out for it. Those of us that would normally be opposed and have historically been opposed to continuing resolutions, we ended up voting for it. So that is the short of it. So what does that mean? That means we continue to work for the Senate. So the House is going home. We just finished. We're going to go home for the next few days while the Senate is working on their portion. Of course, when we get back, we'll address hopefully what the Senate does. Now, there may be some filibustering. That's where the Democrats, kind of block the Senate version of that coming over. But ultimately, the Senate will send over their information. So now let's talk about interesting development in Ukraine. So obviously you have the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Marco Rubio and Mike Waltz just announced that Ukraine has agreed to a framework for a ceasefire. Now that's huge because this is an ongoing conflict. We're in, I don't even know how many months now. I mean, 2 years, but I don't even know how many total months. But now just 3 weeks ago, the left and the woke stream media said that Trump's tactics would never secure a peace deal. And they were mocking the president as he was talking about peace, that Russia would come to the table, that Ukraine would come to the table, that it was attainable. So here we go. Let's watch this clip.
Administration and Tara Setmeyer, co-founder and CEO of the Seneca Project and a former GOP communications director. Tara, I'm starting with you. Do you believe Trump? We just heard President Zelensky saying, there ain't going to be no peace deal without us. And then the president's asked, is he going to be invited? And he says, I believe so. Yeah, he'll be invited. Will he be invited?
The answer is no. Donald Trump is a lying liar who lies. This is the same guy who got impeached the first time over trying.
And so again, the woke media has been trying to undermine the president since before he was elected. But that being said, Zelensky came to the White House. He had backed out of a deal for some mining opportunities in Ukraine. And quite frankly, Trump and the vice president let him have it. And so quickly, I think he realized that he erred and he misjudged President Trump's and J.D. Vance's resolve. And he's now to the table, Russia's to the table, and we have this opportunity for peace. Now, what does it ultimately look like? I don't know. Time will tell. But we'll see what happens over the next 30 days as we begin to progress. And hopefully, we can bring an end to this conflict. Now, look. Likely the Donbas region, which is from a heritage perspective and a language-speaking perspective, is historically Russian. That is likely to go and be part of the deal. But we'll see. I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, the Ukrainian people and the Russians as well have to come to an agreement. But Russia is, again, at the table. They're talking to Ukraine, and that is a good thing. The president said this is one of his top priorities, to bring peace to the continent, the European continent, and now obviously we'll shift to other parts of the world that have been on fire, like the Middle East. So I was just in a briefing with one of our diplomats talking about obviously Israel and Syria and Lebanon, everything that's been going on there. If you've been paying attention to the news, you've seen where the regime and some bad actors in Syria have been really butchering individuals, Christians and the Druze. And so it's a hot mess. The president will turn his attention now to the Middle East. Obviously, it's already been there, but really focusing on the Middle East to bring peace there. So let's talk about these judges for a minute. And so we've identified, if you've seen the board, one of the previous episodes, 11 or so woke activist judges that have really been undermining the president. So I've talked about these quotes before from our founding fathers, but Hamilton referenced the judicial branch as the weakest of the branches. It was his least concern. And then so when you look at that, Madison said that an over-powerful and overactive judiciary could tip the balance of powers. And so what we have is our founding fathers warned us of this very moment. So you have a Biden-appointed woke judicial activist judge, Amir Ali, is still coordinating his effort to stop Doge from freeing up your tax dollars, forcing tax dollars to go overseas. Now, look, if it's monies that have already been committed, i.e. spent, that's one thing. But future monies, that should be stopped. The president is the chief executive. He has certain constitutional power, so he can reel those monies back and save the taxpayer dollar. And so ultimately what we have are these woke judges that are trying to essentially serve as the judicial branch. So my question, he is, recently come to the United States from Canada. Has he revoked his Canadian citizenship? Is he truly committed to the United States of America? Where are his allegiances? He clearly doesn't like the president of the United States, President Trump. He's an activist judge who's undermining the executive branch. He's literally fulfilling the prediction from our founding fathers that the judicial branch, the judiciary, would become way too powerful and would be a threat to the balance of powers and, quite frankly, be a threat to you and your rights. So this is Ali's opinion, his ruling in court. And this is what I think of Judge Ali's opinion when it comes to Trump and the executive order. It should be shredded. It should be in the garbage. Enough is enough. President Trump is the president of the United States. You may not like it, but you're going to have to accept it. He's the best president we've had in a very long time. We've got peace ensuing. The economy's about to take off, and you're going to see a golden age of America being restored. So if you're a woke and activist judge, know that Congress is watching, and we're going to hold you accountable. With that, this is Congressman Andy Ogles. Have a great day. God bless, and thank you.
If you try to transition a child, you are guilty of child abuse, and every doctor, every nurse, every clinician that is helping that is culpable in that crime.
This thing is so